Well, folks, we are about halfway through the year, and I thought it was a good opportunity to take a look back on the new releases that I've played and some that I haven't finished. What are my thoughts on some of those? But also, as we look forward for the remainder of this year, what games here in the fall of 2025 am I still looking forward to picking up? And games that I think you should also have on your radar. But hello everyone and welcome back to another video. That is exactly what we're going to do. We're going to kick things off by first talking through 5 games coming out for the remainder of 2025. Assuming none of them get delayed. There is one that I'm really worried about getting pushed to 2026. And then we're also going to check in on the new releases from 2025 that I've already had an opportunity to play, in some cases finish. Some Game of the Year candidates, others have been tremendously disappointing, but we're going to be getting into all of it here shortly. Please leave me a comment down below and let me know what are some of your favorite games from 2025 so far. And as we look into the fall, what are some games that you cannot wait to pick up for the remainder of the year? I'd love to hear from you, but without further ado, let's go ahead and get started. Now, we're kind of cheating a little bit because this game has actually already come out a few weeks ago. It is a sequel to a game I never finished. I put about 10 hours into it, and I just really wrestling with myself on whether or not I want to go back and play the director's cut before jumping into the sequel. I'm, of course, talking about Death Stranding here on PS5. The sequel I do not own a copy of yet, but by all accounts seems to have, I don't want to say blown this first game out of the water, but one of my good friends who I trust their opinions about games has said it does everything that first game did exponentially better, continues Norman Reedus and that little baby, Sam, and whatever the baby's name is, in some of the most ludicrous, weird ways. A story that only Hideo Kojima can write. And I remember seeing a video of Norman Reedus talking about Hideo just directing him on set of just the things that are going on in this story. I don't even think the people in this game know what's going on, but all of that aside, it's just a fascinating concept, and I really did enjoy parts of the first game when I played it originally on PS4. And you would go on these long treks delivering these packages, and you'd then get to this mountaintop and you'd climb over it, and this Church's song that I'd never heard before would start playing, and it was like, holy crap, maybe the trek was actually worth it. Maybe stumbling and bumbling around this world, reading messages from other players who had left me shortcuts or ladders or zip lines to navigate and explore this massive open environment was actually worth it because I got to hear a Church's song. I don't know. Plenty of people in my PS5 collection video said, you owe it to yourself to play the first game. Do not just jump into the sequel and watch a story summary. You must play the first game first. So maybe it's a two-parter going into the fall. I first need to play and complete Death Stranding, the director's cut on PS5, before jumping into the sequel. But color me intrigued. I think any project that Hideo Kojima has a hand in, certainly one that he directs, is one that, at the very least, you should watch someone else play on Twitch because they are fascinating games and he is one interesting human being. Next up, we have a game that is actually a prequel to a series of games that I've enjoyed quite a bit, and that is the Mafia series. I've only played the first 2 games, never played the third, but Mafia: The Old Country is coming out this fall, August 8th, and from the trailers, the thing that struck me most, it really seems like The Sopranos meets Uncharted. Clearly an emphasis on the story, close quarters combat, even the gunplay. You have that little aim reticle, like your Grand Theft Autos, like your Uncharted type games, but really the set piece moments when you're kind of like chasing people in cars, and it just has that cinematic vibe about it that screams Uncharted to me. And I really enjoyed both the first 2 Mafia games. I think I've actually played each of them twice, the original versions and then eventually the remasters. So this prequel set in 1900s Sicily, you're playing as this young man kind of rising the ranks in this crime family. Just very interested when you describe a game like The Sopranos meets Uncharted. So this game, August 8th, that is Mafia: The Old Country. Very excited for this one. Coming out on August 19th in a day and date PlayStation Plus title, Giant Squid's next game, one of my most anticipated games coming into the year. That is Sword of the Sea, where many people have described it as Journey meets Tony Hawk. It's like a lot of Giant Squid, that game company's games. It's tough to know what's actually going on. Maybe you're kind of restoring life to this desolate world. It's really tough to know, but just navigating this world seems to be one of the most intriguing elements, this kind of buried sea, desolate, vast landscapes, and you're kind of riding this hoverboard around. It just seems very fluid and very fun, kind of riding half pipes made of sand and kind of grinding your way through this world. And the fact that it's a day-and-date PlayStation Plus title is amazing. I hope it eventually gets a physical release, as did the Pathless eventually, which was Giant Squid's previous game that I absolutely loved. And Austin Wintory comes back and is reprising his role as the composer to the game, so you know you're going to get some melancholy, just very emotional type music that kind of fuels the experience. So very much looking forward to this. Again, that is Sword of the Sea, coming out August 19th. Now, it's tough to get through any Re-Louis video without me shouting out the Hot Shots Golf series, and I was absolutely ecstatic when a previous game conference, I can't remember who it was, said that Everybody's Golf Hot Shots is coming back, and it is releasing September 5th, assuming it's not delayed, and it seems to be bringing back all of the arcadey golf fun that we expect from this series, dating back to the PlayStation 1. I was first introduced to the Hot Shots Golf series on PlayStation 2, both 3 and 4, eventually getting Hot Shots Golf World Invitational on the PlayStation Vita, Everybody's Golf on the PlayStation 4. It is undoubtedly one of my most played video game series across all of PlayStation consoles. It is a mainstay, or at least it has been dating back to the PlayStation 4, but we've not had a Hot Shots Golf game on the PlayStation 5 because Clap Hands is actually not developing this. I think PlayStation must have sold the rights of the IP to a different studio that I believe is continuing to make this game. So I'm hoping it doesn't lose any of the charm of those previous games, but from the trailer, it looks like a lot of those characters from the PlayStation 2 era of Hot Shots is coming back into this one. So I'm not sure if it's intended to be kind of like an all-star ultimate celebration version of the series, but regardless, that 3-button click system is timeless. If you just give me a way to outfit my character, play tournaments, unlock new characters, that's all I need. This is a game I cannot wait to play. It'll be one that I probably will not uninstall from my PlayStation 5 for years to come. And if you are a fan of arcadey golf games, this is one you don't want to miss. And lastly, we have Ghost of Yotai, scheduled to release on October 2nd. This is the one that I'm really worried could get pushed to Q1 of 2026. But for now, it is October 2nd. It is the follow-up to my favorite game on PlayStation 4. I adored Ghost of Tsushima. The combat, exploring the world, Jin's story, without a doubt, the most environmentally detailed open world I have ever explored and seen in a video game. And Ghost of Yotai seems to be no exception, continuing with its beautiful open world design. And I'm just really curious to see where they take the story, given it's a completely new character, completely different time period, taking place hundreds of years before the events of Ghost of Tsushima. But I have complete faith in Sucker Punch. It's been so amazing to see them as a developer continue to evolve and stretch themselves, taking on new IP, completely original titles, dating back to Rocket Robot on Wheels on the N64. Then you had the Sly Cooper series, Infamous, and now Ghost of Tsushima and Yotai. Very excited to play this. And as we'll get into here shortly, I need a good feudal Japan open world to explore because the past few have just not done it for me. So Ghost of Yotai, October 2nd, cannot wait. Undoubtedly, probably my most anticipated game for the remainder of the year. Now I want to transition a little bit and talk about some of my favorite 2025 releases to this point in the year, and others that were a bit of a disappointment. We're going to be getting into all of it, but let's kick things off with my frontrunner for Game of the Year. That is Clair Obscur Expedition 33. I have a sealed PS5 copy. I will eventually break the seal and replay this game because I played through it originally through Xbox Game Pass. All of the hype surrounding this game is very well deserved, and truthfully, it's probably not even getting enough hype around it because it truly is that good. And I want to warn everyone, I'm not going to go into the story whatsoever because you have to go into this game not knowing as much as possible in terms of its story, the characters, and what's really going on. So I'll leave it at that on the story side of things. I guess the last thing I will say is it goes in some wild directions. I personally felt it was a very satisfying conclusion to the story. It's phenomenal. Amazing stuff. That's all I'll say. But when it comes to the combat in Clair Obscur, it's one of the best mashups of genres I've seen in recent years, where you take kind of the Dark Souls elements of you have your bonfires, enemies respawn each time you rest at those bonfires. You have a parry mechanic, so very Sekiro-like in that style. But then you have this amazing turn-based RPG. And I think there are a lot of turn-based RPGs for maybe the mainstream audience nowadays that you look at Dragon Quest XI, maybe the Octopath Traveler type games, that it's not fast enough. There's not enough that makes it exciting for new players that didn't grow up playing the great Super Nintendo RPGs of the past. I think this game can really breathe, or really has breathed new life into that turn-based RPG genre that would really bring in new audiences, younger folks that didn't grow up playing Final Fantasy and Dragon Quest when they were younger, like many of us have. Because battles just feel so snappy and quick, and the parry mechanic specifically, not so much on the common enemies that you're just running into and fighting in the open world or in these open zoned areas, but more so the boss battles themselves, where it becomes less of, hey, just hit that parry mechanic and try and time that perfectly to get a counterattack. It's more of a rhythm game. You really have to, okay, wait a second, let me understand and learn the pattern of this boss's attack. And then it becomes like parry, 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 parry. Like legitimate rhythm game elements in terms of learning these patterns of the bosses. And for some, that might be a little overwhelming, and it can be, but thank goodness Sandfall knew that they just wanted people to experience this story. I played on the easiest difficulty setting. No shame in doing so. You can do that too. And in the game's recent patch, they made it even a little bit easier to master and perfect the parry and its dodge mechanics when you're in combat. So I don't want to say it's overly forgiving or too forgiving, but I think if you are just someone who wants to experience the story while getting a flavor and a hint of that Sekiro-like combat with its parry system, you can do that, and you can experience this game's phenomenal story. Undoubtedly, my frontrunner for Game of the Year. Incredible voice acting, Ben Starr, Andy Serkis, a number of others. What a wild ride this was. I hope it's one of the frontrunners for Game of the Year at the Game Awards this fall, because it is more than deserving of that accolade. Next up, let's talk through a couple games that haven't quite hit the mark for me. The first up, perhaps my biggest disappointment of 2025 so far. That is Assassin's Creed Shadows. After 20 hours, I uninstalled this game on my PS5, and I wonder how much of it is a little bit of just Assassin's Creed fatigue, which is very real because I've played so many Assassin's Creed games in the past couple of years. But there's one mechanic in this game that is driving me absolutely nuts. As many of you might know, I'm not the biggest fan of puzzles in games, all right? I enjoy the environmental puzzles in your Tomb Raiders and Uncharted's, things like the Pathless Journey. If there are other indie-like puzzles, I'm good with that. But puzzles for puzzle's sake drive me nuts, and every single quest in Assassin's Creed Shadows has you, when you kind of click on a waymarker and say, okay, I want to go talk to this person to move forward with this quest, every single one of them has this 3-part riddle that says, okay, you want to talk to this person? They are north of Kyoto, east of this tower, and west of this random bridge. And you're like, all right, so in this general vicinity, you go in this area, riding your horse, kind of hovering over this one button to kind of go into this assassin's-like vision to kind of try and find this little mini blue marker to discover where this guy is. So you talk to him. Okay, what do I do next? Well, this guy says, okay, now I need to go assassinate this person. They are south of Osaka, west of this shrine, and east of this other bridge. And you're like, all right. And so every single thing that you do in this game, everything, has a riddle like this. Every quest and subquest underneath it has a 3-part riddle. And now, granted, there is a way that you can send out these scouts. It's like a limited resource that refreshes after a certain amount of time, that you can send these scouts out that essentially uncovers the clouded map. But you're not, if you didn't basically get the general vicinity of that area right, then you wasted this resource and it doesn't tell you exactly where that person is on the map. And so maybe this is Ubisoft's response to the feedback that Ubisoft game design is just, hey, very check the box in nature. You have this way marker, you go to this map, area in the map, you do this thing. But personally, that's why I play the games, because I'm a dad. I'm always exhausted and I just want to be able to veg out, play an Assassin's Creed game, go and assassinate people and explore feudal Japan, because that sounds amazing. But no, I feel like they are just constantly blocking and stifling progress by interjecting this weird riddle system that constantly has you guessing on where you're supposed to go next. Now, don't get me wrong. The game, it looks beautiful. Ubisoft, they tend to not miss when it comes to creating immersive, beautiful open worlds. But so much of this game outside of that is just not landing for me. The voice acting, at times, kind of embarrassing. Like, it's bad. The combat and everything like that, it's a nice continuation of Valhalla, Odyssey, Origins. I don't really have anything to complain about there, but exploration, discovering where to go next is just kind of a headache, and I kind of just need to walk away from it. Cool down a little bit, take a deep breath. Maybe in a couple months, maybe in a year, I'll come back to it, but I think it's going to be really hard to go back to Assassin's Creed Shadows after playing something like The Ghost of Yotai, who I know is going to basically do everything that Assassin's Creed Shadows is not doing well: voice acting, story, open world exploration, combat that's more nuanced and fun. It's going to be tough to go back to AC Shadows. So for now, a disappointment. That's not a knock on anyone who's enjoying it. I wish I was in your shoes, but right now it's a disappointment for me. And I hate saying that. I really, really do. Next up, a bit of a disappointment for me as well, and that is Obsidian's first-person fantasy RPG, Avowed. I played this on Game Pass for about 10 hours, and I thought this was going to hold me over until Elder Scrolls 6, but I think Oblivion Remastered will have to check that box. I enjoy the parkour mechanics. Graphically looks nice, but it just kind of seems like a very lifeless game. And I read that it was originally designed and was being built to be some kind of like live service MMO cooperative experience, and that is very apparent. You go into these towns and the NPCs like do not react to your actions at all. In fact, it almost seems like Pokemon Legends Arceus, where you go into town and you just have these like stoic figures of people that don't talk, don't move, and don't react to anything you do. You can go into someone's house, steal their stuff, walk out, nothing happens. You can swing your sword and shoot arrows around, and while you can't actually kill any of the NPCs, the guards, like no one's reacting or doing anything about the things that you're doing. And for an RPG of this caliber made by Obsidian in 2025, I don't want to say that's unacceptable, but it's certainly disappointing. And so I don't think I'll go back to this one. I truly don't think I will. There really wasn't anything on the story that was compelling or keeping me invested or interested. Even the combat and everything like that, well, the parkour stuff is nice. It just, I don't know, it doesn't seem like it was fitting for a fantasy RPG like this, like Dying Light meets Skyrim. I don't know. I wasn't feeling it. I'm curious where other people were at with Avowed, but is anyone talking about Avowed anymore? I just feels like it kind of came out, had its moment, not a very good one, and it's kind of just been swept under the rug, and I don't know. Not a game I'm looking forward to going back to, and certainly a disappointment for me so far this year. But let's wrap up with two games that I do think have some very redeeming qualities. One I finished, one I've not yet played, but I'm very much looking forward to doing so. First up, we have South of Midnight, which many are probably familiar with if you have seen and followed the Xbox game conferences over the past couple of years. It is that stop-motion indie action platformer set in the Deep South. You're playing as this young girl that at the beginning of the game is separated from her mom due to this massive storm that kind of separates them. And over the course of the game's 6 to 8 hours, you're kind of making your way back to her And you get these magical like powers very early in the game where you're kind of stitching together the past and memories of generations of people who have lived here in this city and town over the past maybe 100 years or so. And so it's really interesting to see Hazel, the main character, kind of see these memories and kind of make sense and understand what's truly going on in the story. And unfortunately, my favorite parts about The South of Midnight are not when I was actually playing it, or not in the traditional sense anyways. It was really the surrounding bits, the story. This developer put so much love, care, and respect on the Deep South, its culture, the people. The music is phenomenal in the game, but actually playing it became quite a bit tedious. And thankfully there is a accessibility option where you could completely turn off combat, which about 3 to 4 hours in, I did, because it never really grew or improved upon the opening mechanics. We were kind of just slashing and mashing the X button against these enemies in these kind of like gated areas where they kind of appear. That gets very tiresome very quickly. I will say that the platforming and just navigating the world is something that I enjoyed quite a bit, but the combat is just very cumbersome and very repetitive, unfortunately. But the music is phenomenal. I really enjoyed the story. Seeing Hazel's story come to a conclusion again after that maybe 8 to 10 hour mark, I do think it's worth playing, but just be warned going into this game that the combat is repetitive and probably my biggest gripe with the game. But one worth playing, I think. Definitely an indie gem of this year so far. And last, but certainly not least, it would not be a Relouis video without highlighting and showing some love to 3D platformers. One that I've not really heard anyone talk about, a game that I've been watching and following its development for a while, and that is Paper Clay. A little charming 3D collectathon platformer that feels like a love letter to the golden age of collectathons. Think Banjo-Kazooie meets Little Big Planet, and a little bit of Tearaway. You're playing as these main characters. Chick and Nugget are their names. I mean, my goodness. It just really looks like this, I think, solo developed 3D platformer is really just someone who grew up playing those games like Banjo-Kazooie, Mario 64, Spyro the Dragon growing up. They even were able to get some of the voice actors from the Sly Cooper games. They got Grant Kirkhope to compose some of the game's music, at the very least the game's main theme. It just looks like a really wholesome, charming 3D collectathon platformer that currently is only on Steam. I've already purchased a copy. At the time of this recording, it's actually on sale. So if you are a fan of 3D platformers of the N64, PS1 era, Paper Clay is absolutely one you want to check out. It's already out now and only on Steam, but I really hope it eventually comes to console, because you better believe I'm going to be getting the Platinum Trophy on this game if it does release on PlayStation 5 at some point. All right, everyone, those are 5 games that I'm still looking forward to playing deeper into the year that have still yet to come out, and also 5 games that I have played so far here in 2025 that, in some cases, Game of the Year candidates. I'm looking at you, Claire Obscure. Others, a little disappointed, like Assassin's Creed Shadows and Avowed. But what do you think of 2025 so far when it comes to game releases? What are some of your favorites so far, and what are some games you're looking forward to playing here deeper into the year? I'd love to hear from you in the comment section down below, but I want to thank you so much for watching this video, and I will see you in my next one.